Okay, welcome back, everyone. We've concluded the executive session, during which Jeff Kaufman, who's the chair of our TP&Z, presented the recommendation of the interview committee, recommending that Malone and McBroom be hired by the town to assist us in updating our plan of conservation and development. There were no votes taken in executive session. There was consensus to go ahead, and at this time I'd like to entertain a motion to authorize the first selectman to enter into a contract with Malone and McBroom in accordance with the summary document that was reviewed by the Board of Selectmen, that signature to be dependent upon review and approval by council. And I would also mention that before signing the contract, it will be made available to the Board of Selectmen for review. So I would entertain the motion. Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeff. Okay, Jason Morrill, Chair of the Conservation Commission. Welcome.
Thank you. All right. I've got two things to discuss this evening. First is the status of the hip tag grant. And this has been a long process. This started before I became chair of conservation. And I'd just like to give a quick overview to those here, because I don't know if everyone was present back when this started in, I think it was the fall of last year. There was potential to get technical assistance from the state to assess 4 houses on regional water authority property. And the purpose of the assessment was to determine the historical significance and the potential of putting these houses on the state register, so to list them as a historic place. A grant was submitted, a grant was awarded to the town to go ahead and get a proposal and have somebody follow through, do the historical research necessary, and actually nominate these properties to be on the state historic register. And if they do end up being listed on the register, it could open the door for funding to help preserve the houses. They're in deplorable condition right now. The 4 houses that are in Woodbridge are Johnson Road, Sperry Road, and 2 on Litchfield Turnpike. I did a walk around recently myself, and all of the houses have weeds growing out of the gutters. Some have holes in the roof, some have holes in the walls. And with this grant, it would be determined whether or not the houses are worth saving. So that's a little background on the grant. 2 proposals were received. This is again prior to me coming on the commission. So forgive me if there are those here that already know more detail than I do. Of the 2 proposals that came before us, one was qualified to do the work. And I'm coming before the board tonight to propose that the Board of Selectmen approve engaging with the contract. And I know I've spoken with Tony and Ellen about this. Tony, do you have a chance to follow up a little bit on this at all today?
The contract is actually the resume of the person is handed out to the board, so they have a little write-up on that.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Amounts?
The grant's a 50% matching grant,
It is a 50% matching grant coming from the state, correct?
and so the contract is $8,000. It is a not to exceed, actually. And so the grant would pay $4,000, the town would pay $4,000.
Are there questions for Jason on this?
I have a question, might be more towards Tony. When we met with Paul a while back, I thought there was conversation that there was a second person who wanted to be part of the bidding process. Did that never materialize?
There was a second contract that had come through. Their qualifications weren't sufficient. They certainly didn't match the first contract.
And Jason, Paul has given this back to the Conservation Commission.
Correct. I received a nice 1.5-inch thick packet from Paul, and I have now passed it along to Rich Kruger because he was one of the original people involved with the grant write-up going back to the fall of last year. So it felt appropriate that he has a bit more solid footing on the background of the grant. So I was happy to pass that packet on to him, so he's in possession of it at the moment.
So, I just want to be clear about this. For the town's $4,000, the town will receive confirmation that these properties are in deplorable condition?
It will determine the historical significance of these properties. It could be that one of them, two of them, all of them really have no particular historical significance to the town, and in which case they would not be nominated for the state register. The ultimate goal put forward originally is that these houses should be saved because they do represent various historical aspects of the town. And getting them nominated is the first step to getting alternative funding to help renovations. A second grant could be put out there, another HIP tag grant, for assessing the properties in terms of what will it cost to renovate them.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Who's responsible for those costs?
Currently, it's all Water Authority property. The Water Authority would like to get rid of these properties. They used to rent them up until just several years ago. And it's sort of demolition by neglect at this point on these properties. And it seems a shame to lose these properties in the town. I wear two different hats here. It's kind of difficult to separate. I'm on the Historical Society as well as Conservation. So from the historical perspective, it should be something that the town might consider supporting and determining the historical significance, and then also whether or not it's even fiscally responsible to save these houses.
I think when Paul DeCosta described it also, the hope was that a private entity would come in to restore one or more of the houses and perhaps rent it once the historical value was established. Is that correct?
Yep, that was also part of the original discussion that I've heard from Paul as well.
I have a couple questions about the dates on this. I'm assuming it's...
Yeah, the dates on
It's
that.
on or before August 15,
Right.
2013.
Yeah.
Yikes.
The process has been dragged out for a very long
Okay.
time, which is why I'm coming to try and kick it along. So those dates there obviously would get shifted in time,
Okay.
but to act upon this proposal that.
You have, is there a funding source from us determined? as
If
to-
$1,000 is from the budget of the Conservation Commission,
Okay,
and the remaining $3,000 is a transfer later in your package from contingency.
okay.
So Paul, can I just go review it really quick? I'm sorry, Jason.
Yeah.
When Paul came, and I think I understood it, that basically these are 4 properties all owned by the Regional Water Authority.
Correct.
We have no ownership of them. We're looking to get these 4 properties possibly designated as historical. And I say possibly because this person who may go out and evaluate that only 2 of them are potentially historical in nature. Once they are determined to be historical, if they are, and we apply through the state, we would have to go and have somebody spend some money to go out and do an assessment of how much it would cost to repair them if we wanted to look at such a thing. Other than that, by naming them, if we can get them named through the state as historical, then even if the Regional Water Authority sells the property or goes back to another lease, that person would be responsible to restoring the property to its original state. It can't tear it down, build a new property. By naming it, by having it designated as such, it would protect those properties that basically they'd have to be restored to in their original state. They would not be allowed to be ripped down and
Correct.
rebuilt.
I don't believe they could be leveled if they were on the register in the state.
But they don't have to be,
Correct.
and we don't own the property.
We don't own the properties.
So we spend this money, they get nominated, they are or they aren't historical. I'm losing
So
what,
if they are, they're They're protected.
They can't be
Well,
torn
well,
down.
right, they
If
can't
they
be
are
torn down, but
historically
they could
built.
sit on water company land and just keep falling down.
Well, it's actually a question that I have, and my recollection is that council has been successful on at least one occasion in the last year, maybe two in the last 2 years, eliminating 2 properties that were designated as blight properties, because it's against our ordinance to have blight properties. So if these are not historically significant and they're falling apart,
If they're not, right.
and I don't know the answer to that, obviously,
But-
then at some point, it seems to me, they qualify potentially as blight properties.
Well, I think
Which
they,
would cost us a lot more than $4,000 to figure out.
but they qualify for that now, because if they're not classified as historical, then they could be classified as blighted properties as of right
So
now.
that's my question then. What's potentially historically significant about these properties?
I don't have the information before me. There was a write-up on the 4 properties, very brief in the past, and I think.
I don't remember this at all. Remember the
Yeah.
photos, Jim McDonald brought photos, as I recall, and it was a brief discussion, but
Jason has some pretty in-depth photos.
Right, the
Of the
up-to-date photos
properties.
of it.
So by
the-
historic, are we talking about my birthday or are we talking about? I mean, how far back?
We're talking early to mid 1800s.
I'm pretty old.
Early to mid 1800s.
No, I'm not that old.
And
Yeah.
early 1900s.
Okay, they're old. So I'm looking for an era here.
Yeah.
And that's where the significance comes
Yeah,
from.
we're going 100 years and further back.
I gotcha.
And a couple
It's been
appear to be in
determined.
much better shape than a couple. There's 1 or 2 of them that are really bad shape.
That's true for people my birthday as well, so I get that. You know, I totally
And some,
understand.
and I know that the Doolittle property in particular, it's a prominent name at the time in
Right.
town. So there is some historical significance of the people that were involved in that
Right.
house, in that property at the
And-
point.
That's helpful. Thank you.
And just for a little background for the board, as I understand it, the board authorized Paul DeCosta and the Conservation Commission to go ahead and apply for this grant,
Right.
and did say, and this was before we were here, but did say that the town would provide matching grants up to a certain amount. Now, there is also some language that perhaps the town contribution would be in kind, but that was not in the actual language of the motion. So I think that the board is on record as supporting this in the past. And I know that Paul DeCosta put a lot of time and energy into it with the support, certainly of the Conservation Commission. And Jason, I take it from what you're saying that you and the current Conservation Commission are in support of taking these next steps. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yes, yeah, that is the opinion of the Conservation Commission, that it is
A worthy endeavor of the town to evaluate these properties to determine whether or not they need to be leveled, whether they are historical in a significant way for the town. And then at that point, what further steps will the town take? This is just a first step in the ability to help preserve the houses if they are determined worthy of preserving.
I think one of the things, if we go ahead with this, we would be sure to ask council before we sign anything that this does not open us up to any liability or obligations beyond this step, right? So that if we approve this, that's the scope of what we're
That's a good
approving
point.
tonight, right?
And this step is really proceeding with what this body already told them to do.
That's what I think is the
And
case.
Tony, wasn't that up to 5,000?
It was up to 5,000, right?
I think I was a part of
So
that.
now it's a deal.
It's,
By the way, can I just say something? The book, I don't remember who did the book about 15 years ago or 20 years ago, The Historic Houses of Woodbridge. It is a treasure, that book. I mean, it's a really wonderful thing. So if these houses are designated as historic properties, I don't know, I'm not saying somebody's going to redo the book, but would they qualify to be in that kind of book that is redone?
Yes, very much so. And putting on my Historical Society hat, we do want to do another revision of that book. And in the original
Work done for that book, these 4 houses were in that original assessment in the town. Not all of them made it into the final printing, along with, I think, dozens. I think the original assessment was over 200 homes in the town that were looked at, but not all of them made it into that book. Yeah.
Terrific book, terrific compilation. Thank you.
any other questions? Okay. Okay, I would entertain a motion then to authorize the first selectman to enter into the contract as recommended by the Conservation Commission, subject to review and approval by council, including specifically a determination that entering into the contract does not obligate the town in any way beyond the terms of the contract.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Okay, you have a second issue.
And my second is more of just
The Conservation Commission's position on the recent amendment that was proposed before TPZ on Monday. I didn't watch the whole TPZ, so I don't remember the final outcome. But the Conservation Commission supports the amendment. It also believes that the amendment, the position on the amendment wasn't in relation to any particular property whatsoever. It felt that the amendment stood on its own because it opens the door for potential funding from the state. And also the amendment mentions that there's an agricultural commission potentially to be formed. Because it takes a while to form commissions as such, the Conservation Commission would like to be the acting body when it comes to programs and duties related to agriculture and farmland preservation. I don't think that's a earth-shattering statement. I think sort of the Conservation Commission's been the de facto commission when it came to these sorts of topics of discussion. But I just wanted to bring that up, that we felt that it was an important point to make.
Any questions on this? Jason?
Well,
Okay.
Yeah, because part of that farmland, when we looked at, when you applied, one of the things you had to have was an agriculture commission or something that based themselves like it. So you're suggesting that the Conservation Commission be named to have that authority entitlement, so that otherwise you can't submit the grant without something designated as your agriculture. It was one of the bullet points that needed to be filled if you were going to apply for any piece of property to go into it. So I think what Jason is suggesting is that we give them the authority to do so. So if a grant goes forward, we'd be able to say we've.
Well, we don't have the language in front of us. I think that that's one option. I'm not sure we have to have, I'm not sure. So I don't think we're ready for action tonight, but I think that does frame the issue really well.
Why don't I look into it a little further, and if there's some specific language that I could bring before the board for a vote, I will do that.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea.
They did move to approve the amendment
Okay.
Monday night.
Very good. You were there?
I was there, I stayed.
Anything
Saw
else?
you bail.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay, Dr. Stella?
Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to start by publicly thanking the police department and fire department for the support and cooperation that they have given us and are providing to us. They really care about the security of our children and all adults at Beecher Road School. Yesterday, for example, I had the opportunity to meet with the first selectman and also Chief Marcucci and Deputy Chief Stewart, just for an assessment or review of current support systems and what might be needed as we go along. We're grateful for so many things, and to the town, particularly for providing a resource officer who is also a DARE officer. Officer Lynch is wonderful. I was with him at Egress today. He goes above and beyond and extends himself to our families and makes a good connection. Also, the police department helps us with sweeps around the building at certain times, especially in the afternoon when there are recreation programs and after-school programs. And they help us to examine our protocols and our practice drills each month. And the fire department is right alongside caring for our children. There's comprehensive checks of the building each year. They work with us on any large gatherings together. And they help to educate our children, too. This past week, they brought one of the engines over, and the firemen came over to help our classes learn about fire safety in the home. And the children had fun at the same time doing it. So the cooperation between all town departments and the school has been wonderful, a very, very positive sign. I see my colleague Todd Fabian here tonight, And he came over for a visit to the school. We did a tour of the school, and we're talking about a number of big ideas that hopefully will have a connection that will bring benefit not only to the children of Beecher Road School, to our citizens, but more information to follow on that. This past weekend was beautiful. Fall is a lovely time of the year in New England, and last Saturday I spent the Saturday following Beecher Road School children and families, and they led me to the road race, which the rec department did a fabulous job of doing. I saw our first selectman there, and Anthony was there, and a number of other people. So we went to that, and the one at 10:45. So in addition to cheering our younger and our older runners, we had a chance to just mingle as a community. I always say our children give us a good excuse to come together as a community, and there was definitely community there. I had a chance to stop over at the campus, Beecher Road School later, and just walk around. My family joined me there too. It's such a fun place, and it was wonderful to see families enjoying the playgrounds and the grounds there. There are 43 acres of land available for all citizens in town. And afterwards, we went to the Massaro Farm for the Family Day. And the Massaro Farm, as you know, is a gift, really a gift. And to see the number of volunteers, many Beecher Road School families as well, helping out there was a treat. Fall is a beautiful season, but winter follows fall. And with all the progress that we're making as a school and as a town, my concern or challenge for the winter is the heating of the building. And it's not a secret that we've been very concerned about our boilers for the past few years. We've had a number of consultants look at it, some people from town, our building facility, and so on. But as you know, one of the two boilers broke down during the cleaning season this year, and there are no parts. There are no parts that we can get for it. Repair seems to be impossible to do. And I know the town has been involved. I've come to the town before. I'm just concerned that the winter will be coming soon, and I just wanted to bring the concern again here and to support the movement in any way, and to answer any questions that.
Other questions for Dr. Celato?
Sure. What's the concern with the boilers specifically?
Well, during the course of the annual cleaning and...
I don't mean to stop you, but you've told us that a few times, but I mean, you're concerned going into winter.
Yeah.
So what's the impact that you
My
see?
concern is that we had two. One is inoperable. My concern is that the other won't survive the winter.
We have an expert give
Yes,
opinion on.
because I tell you, I'll swear I'm not an expert on boilers, but we've had so many people come in and even climbing into the boilers and so on, and so we've had a number of people come in and look at it, and we look to see, Joseph, too, if we could get some parts to repair it, to tide us over to anticipated or hopefully an upgrade, but there are no parts, and even conclusion is we need boilers, new boilers there. So there's
Dr. Stone, I
Let's
think,
get right down to it.
I think we discussed this earlier, but I don't think I was ever able to get a timetable from you.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've looked at the scenario, since you're down to one boiler, if that boiler were to go or couldn't handle during the winter.
Yeah.
What would be the end result? Would we need to close the school down, and how long in your estimation would it need to be closed to bring in, if we waited till then, if there wasn't a new boiler brought in ahead of time, and it simply went on you, has anyone looked at what kind of timelines would be needed? How long would the school need to be closed down?
Yeah, we did look at that because we've had other problems with the boilers in the past. There's the thought of having a portable boiler brought in, but from what I'm told that's a complicated kind of situation. It could take a month, it could take more than that to get in. And then we'd probably have to put it in front of a first grade classroom outside, so the connection and the wires would have to go over, and the expense, what I hear, is a very high one too. So we did look at that in the past years. I don't think it's a good solution with that. The one boiler that we have, is it possible that it could carry us through the winter? It's a gamble, because on a very cold day, you need two boilers going on a freezing day. And this is the exact same boiler as the other one. And again, the consultants looking at it just say they're not good boilers for that building there. So Yeah.
Do something about it ahead of time, and it were to go, we could conceivably looking at a month
We could possibly.
of shutdown.
So shouldn't we have a number of options put before us so we can kind of determine to do nothing or to do something? I mean, because we've heard this 3 or 4 times now,
Right.
and you know.
We've now looked into the process, an emergency process to replace the boilers. And the first step is we need a request from the Board of Education to authorize the purchase of the boilers. We've discussed that with Dr. Stella. As soon as we get that, we will schedule a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance to take emergency action and get those boilers in as quickly as we can.
Yeah, sounds like something we really.
Yep.
And then,
We're just waiting for that.
yeah, and then there's, would require a town vote as there's a capital appropriation above a certain amount. So we'd have to have that process as well.
That we will move, as soon as we get the request, we will schedule the
Well,
meeting,
we could
hopefully next
decide to
week.
gamble, but we got to do something. We have.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think,
We're not.
Well, I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying
Right.
it's a lot.
We've gotta move
Put it before us and let us try to work on this
Right,
instead
it's
of.
a big campus, and there's a lot of people in that building, and
And we also did have this conversation. I asked the gentleman from the company that we're looking at to possibly do the building, and he said they have had those conversations, so the right type of boiler would go in if we
Right.
proceed with that
And
project.
we're not
We wouldn't
getting-
have to replace it.
right. So as soon as we get that letter,
Well, right
we
now
can
we're not
meet,
doing
perhaps
anything.
next week. We can
well,
have a joint
I don't
meeting.
get the sense that we're not doing anything. I get the sense that.
Well, we've heard this
That we
4
know
or
what
5
the,
times now.
we
Now
know
we gotta
going
do-
forward what
so-
it is that we have to do, right?
Gotta do it.
So hear it
Excellent.
anymore.
I think I hear consensus.
Yep, I'm.
So have we made that, we have made that request
Board
of
of
the
Ed-
Board of Ed?
Yes, we have.
I mean, not Dr. Stowe, the Board of
We
Ed.
made it through Dr. Stella.
Great, great.
Do they have a meeting coming soon, or could they have an emergency meeting, the Board of Eds, for this?
Yeah,
It
we'll
sounds
bring
like.
it, bring it right to our finance committee's meeting on Monday. We'll call an emergency meeting if we have to.
Okay.
Chair and the
Monday's
vice
a
chair.
holiday, right?
Monday's a holiday, Tuesday.
Okay, okay.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's important.
We'll move on it fast, but once
And if
again,
you can, everybody start knitting, quick.
Yes.
Right? Distribute sweaters.
well, the town certainly values education. We see that in so many ways, including this here. And it's no wonder, I spoke about some of the Saturday events, it's no wonder that so many new families are moving into town. It's a very desirable town, and again, we thank you for your service. Thank you. Okay.
Education, and we value heat.
We have a few minutes before public comment. Maybe we can get through the next item. Chris Sorensen and Terry Gilbertson on the Public Works Board.
Good evening.
Yeah, we have that one. This guy.
Then, let me see if you get this one.
And now I have 3 copies. Oh, no, this has an extra page. Never mind.
Well, we already like it.
I don't have that.
This is the one we got.
I don't have that.
Then you don't get one of those. I'm not taking it.
Just give us the test thing.
I'm looking, sometimes I think
To Terry.
Terry, I think you need to come around.
We need drawings,
There are
down
no
here.
drawings over here.
Something to draw with.
I need drawings. Terry, any more drawings? This is all I got. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yep.
No, I haven't.
Reviewed it, see?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. It's nice seeing new faces on the board. Our project is moving along quite well. but along the way, you have a few glitches here and there, and you have to fix them. Terry's done a great job for us here, representing us with the town and everything. He's on top of it every day. He sees what goes on. We go down there and we had a committee meeting last week just to look at everything, see what's going on. Terry's going to come to us tonight, and there's a request here, and you'll see what the request is as you go through it. And he's going to explain why we need to do this and the purpose of it all. So I'm going to turn it over to Terry, let him explain why we need the request to move forward in the project as we're moving along.
What you have in front of you is change order number 1. We've had a successful run of this project so far. We think that about 70% of the concrete has been poured, which is over 1,000 cubic yards of concrete in that 70%. We have in the first phase of the building, which is the first 4 bays of the building, the structural steel is up, and this week started the wood roof membrane, and that's about a third of the way up or so. We have another, that's planned to be 2 weeks to put that wood up. We've had 3 change order requests before you get to see change order number 1, and after a vigorous discussion amongst many parties, they've decided not to seek any change orders, and so this is the first one that we have. This was brought to the Public Works Building Committee last Tuesday.
Yep.
And they voted unanimously to refer this matter to you. We believe that this change order, this $14,000 change order, I believe that it's 14, is warranted by the conditions, and I would be happy to have any level of discussion about this that you want. Essentially, it's a change in the structural steel, having to do with the lateral support of the cowl wall. This was the fiberglass enclosure of the building. We had provided for it, and we've given you a letter first from Mr. Kagan, which describes in the first sheet that I handed out to you, his reasoning behind this change order request. On the back side of that, there's an estimate worksheet from our PDS Engineering, our contractor, and another worksheet from All Phase Steelworks, who is doing the structural steel, listing both the additional steel and the savings that they are proposing to give to us. It's interesting in construction that the savings are never as good as the other work. I think it's one of those oxymoronic sorts of things. And on the last page, I've included the project budget that's dated April 3rd, 2013, and it's the original one and the only one and the same one we're billing it to. And it just shows you that under this $14,000 change order, we have under a contingency, an owner's contingency of $255,000, and this $14,000 is the first bite at that contingency. Essentially, we think that, and it's the reason it's in front of you, is that this becomes an addendum to your contract that you've approved with PDS, the general contractor, and so we wanted to get your consent for this. We think it's important. We frankly were hoping to give you an update on the project too, so it just worked out well.
I just want to clarify the number. It seems like the net change number is $11,915.97 plus 10%, so it's $13,107.57.
Yes,
right?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
any questions for Terry?
Yeah. What, 2 things, well, I get 2 things. There's a $250,000 owner's contingency, right?
Correct.
That was at the start of the, what percentage did that represent? What percentage of?
Percentage of the project?
Yeah. Roughly, I'm just curious.
Tony, I believe that we were at 6%
Yeah.
of contingency.
5 or 6, okay.
Yeah.
And not that I can really understand anything Mr. Kagan wrote, and I'm relying on you guys as experts and anything, but I guess my general question would be, did anything change in the site or anything? I mean, what changed to cause the change order, and why wasn't it thought of before?
That was my question, so I think it's a good question. I'd like to show you the plan that was approved, because it's a visual indication of what changed. And I'm sorry I won't have one, but I'd be very happy to
I'm
have
just
it.
gonna sneak around, because
Yeah,
that was my question also.
Come on over.
What we're talking about here.
Hopefully we'll be able to see it even on the site. We'll rely on the shot.
So the original, this diagonal brace that you see in various views is what we provided for the lateral support of this fiberglass wall. This is the bracing against wind. As it turns out, the process for all of this stuff involves a process for shop drawings where the contractor, once they let the bid, they do a detailed shop drawings, which our architect then reviews and reacts to. In the shop drawing process, the cow wall and the steel company said that our design was inadequate, that we needed more steel in a different spot. And the architect took that under consideration. And you can see the first sketch of that, but basically, what this new steel is that we're proposed to do is this going across to here. And it's a good deal more steel. It goes from here to there. We're getting more steel in a different spot, and we've done a number of value engineering attempts. This was a bigger number, and we've brought it down into what we think is a fair number.
So the shop drawings were prepared by whom?
All phase, the steel subcontractor.
So basically, it turned out that those shop drawings were not engineering-wise, they were not sufficient to support this.
We believe that this is the right thing to do. And these things happen. I'd be delighted to be able to report to you. I don't feel an obligation for the project, by the way, to spend all the money.
No, I was going to say, how secure do you feel with that 250?
I think we're gonna be okay. And
Well,
that's, we have cameras running.
Very, very frugal with their money, believe me.
Well, to that point, you said 70% of the concrete is poured, but at what point in the project are we? 15% complete, 25% complete, 10% complete?
It's easier to.
Throw something at the wall and see if it sticks.
Well, to be fair to you, I want to give you a better answer. By subject matter, it's easy. We have less than 10% of the electrical stuff done. You can see a big, totem pole, the main switch for the facility. We changed the transformer. The concrete, the steel, we're making good progress on. We've been having a fantastic opportunity. Experience with the rebar steel. Everybody on this job was telling me that. Did you know, Terry, that the Brooklyn rebar, where we're getting our Brooklyn our reinforcement steel from Brooklyn Rebar
Brooklyn,
in
New
New
York.
York.
Yeah.
They said, the guy lives in Woodbridge, and I said, yeah, right. The guy doesn't drive from Woodbridge, Connecticut to Brooklyn every day. You're talking about Woodbridge, New Jersey. We could issue building permits in Woodbridge, New Jersey all day long. Could we get phone calls about, where's my permit from Woodbridge, New Jersey?
No joke, but I have a cousin at Woodbridge.
Does he need a permit? It turns out one of our residents owns Brooklyn Rebar and is it's a low bid for the rebar on this particular project. He's been fantastic. When we need one that goes left instead of right, he puts it on his truck at night and he delivers it here.
Drops
and so
it
it's
off.
just amazing.
But the question I'm trying to get to is this an error is this a design issue that's now being changed because of field conditions, something we couldn't anticipate? Or is this a design issue that should have been anticipated and we would have paid for it anyway because it would have been designed correctly?
I believe that this is I don't believe this is an error. I believe that that circumstances have come to us, taken us to this conclusion that we need additional support, and that we're getting value for this change order.
Fair enough. I accept that. Thank you.
It's a mass wall too, if you understand.
I don't
and-
want to blow it away. I get what you're
Yeah,
saying.
okay, all right.
Any other questions? Okay. I would entertain a motion to approve the change order request.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're, it's 7:10. I apologize for anyone waiting for public comments at 7 o'clock. Is there anyone who would like to speak?
Yes, I'd like to come forward, please. Donald Celato, 3 Knollwood Road. I want to talk about what was posted tonight, and which became, after, I guess, a few drafts. I understand the rather narrow parameters that govern items properly in executive session, and usually they involve some kind of litigation, some kind of sensitive personnel issue. One of my disadvantages in this discussion is that because you went into executive session, I have no idea what you talked about there. But it seems, and the first selectman referenced it following the resumption of the normal open meeting, that you were talking about a contract, in fact, had a motion and did approve a contract. I find it interesting that we just sat through a presentation about an existing contract, including changes to that contract, which were kind of interesting to me as a member of the public and a citizen of this town. And I question why the same kind of spirit and openness and candor is not apparent in a contract that apparently we only know of in name only now. One of the problems of this new administration is you've had a handful of meetings, and too many of them have featured executive session. And I would submit that the invoking of executive session today was not only unnecessary, but probably impermissible and therefore unlawful. And it breeds a terrible sense of distrust of one's government and skepticism about what goes on, and frankly is progeny of the machinations which took place a couple of years ago around this time and were exposed about 2 years ago around this time regarding all the clandestine negotiations with Toll Brothers. At least you people have the small decency of advertising your secret negotiations on an agenda. But I don't think that you are setting a very good example for an administration that has made something about its effort to be transparent and above board and a sounding board for the citizens of this town. I'm surprised there are 3 lawyers among you, and I would think that each one of you would be a little troubled by what I believe is not only the misuse but abuse of the executive session notion, which is a very narrowly defined concept, and it is designed to protect sensitive and ongoing privileged information items so that they are not polluted, so to speak, or misrepresented in a public discussion, or someone might be maligned therefrom. In no way does this discussion that we are not privy to, in no way does that give rise to any of the clear intent and meaning of the statute. And I don't know who's given you this advice, but it is wrong, and it does nothing to improve the widening credibility gap that you have in matters such as this, which bedeviled the prior administration to its loss in the Toll Brothers fiasco. So I hope that there is some review of this policy, and I would suggest that that tonight's meeting leaves this board open to a freedom of information inquiry and perhaps violation and complaint.
Is there any other public comment?
I wanted to talk about the elderly tax. I've never been to one of these meetings. Is now the time?
Yes.
I'm Ellie Stevens. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Lucy Valeriano, who's 89. And we recently put her house in a trust, and she still pays the taxes on the house. She was previously getting the veterans tax and the elderly tax, but since we put it into a trust, she's now paying, I think it's $2,000 or $3,000 more. And I know you have something on the books. We found this after we changed it into a trust, and we didn't know if that was something that would be changed. She's legally blind, and she has someone living with her, so we were worried about someone, signing off the house to someone. So that's why I'm the trustee for her property, but it is still her house.
Are there questions on this issue? That is a topic that has come up a few times now, that once a residence is put into trust, it's not eligible, the person is not eligible, and I think there is some room for revisiting the statute. It may be that we may be able to distinguish among trusts. So I think the board can talk about making a referral to the ordinance committee to review that.
Is it an
Into an ordinance, though, not a state statute.
No, this would be a town ordinance, and this would be a matter for the ordinance committee. So we can talk about referring it to the ordinance committee for review. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment? If not, I would just like to state on the record that under section 1-210 sub B sub 24, our executive session was perfectly appropriate under the Freedom of Information Act, and there is a difference between the contract award process and discussion of an existing contract. It's something we've reviewed with council before we went into executive session, and it was council's recommendation that we do that. There are many reasons for it, but that is the statutory reference.
I would just
Okay.
like to add that I do understand that's the statutory reference, but I'm not sure it's proper under that statute. So I just wanted to, since you made that record.
That's fine.
Make mine.
That's fine. Okay, the next item, we're going to go to number 6, Tony? Is that
Well, yeah, there's people, Jason's here in the audience.
okay? If there's no objection, Tony has suggested we go to number 6 next, since Jason is here, and then we'll go back to item number 5. Okay, Jason?
Hey, everybody.
Hello, Jason.
Thanks for having me. I'm just going to do 3 things here. First is we did get August financials finalized since the last time I was here, so we'll talk about that. I'll give you kind of an update on September and then follow up with an update on where we stand so far in October. I believe Tony sent out or has in your packet the Woodbridge financial statement for August. I think it's easiest just to go to the main P&L sheet. It's got a little bit less detail. It's a little bit easier to read. Bottom line, August was a great month for us. It was a huge turnaround from prior year, and we had great weather for it, so that certainly helps. Our rounds were up considerably over prior year. They were up by about 9%, which, helped out by the weather, helped out by course conditions, helped out by a lot of different things, but rounds were up 8.5%. When you look at our total revenue, we were basically flat to budget, which was about a 25% increase over prior year. So it was a great performance there. We're still falling a little down on pro shop sales, food and beverage sales, memberships, and those sorts of things. So from a revenue standpoint, again, gross income, we made $210,000 for the month compared to a budget of $216,000, and last year we made $153,000. So again, we had a great increase there. To talk briefly about the expense side, labor, we spent about $4,000 more than we'd originally planned, but we were still able to save compared to what we spent last year. So we saved about $5,000 over last year. And then basically the same story on the expenses as well. We spent about $2,000, $3,000 more than we'd budgeted, but we were able to save about $4,500 on expenses from last year. Speaking at it from a bottom line perspective, we made $26,227 for the month, which I believe makes our first profitable month. We missed budget by about $12,000, but when it's all said and done, we beat prior year by almost $80,000 for the month. So it was a very strong performance. On a year-to-date basis, fiscal year-to-date, July and August, we're ahead of prior year by about $70,000. So certainly getting better. Does anybody want me to go into any more specifics on the financials for August, or does anybody have any questions on August?
How much are we in a deficit for the 2 months fiscal year?
For the 2 months fiscal year, $24,000.
200, thank you.
Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but for this fiscal year, Casper supplied us with the idea that you were looking at a break-even year.
Correct.
Last year, you thought we were going to make $300,000. This year, you thought we were going to break even. So, when I look at the fact that for these 2 months, you originally Casper projected that we would be making $69,000, but that we actually lost 24.
Correct.
For a 93,000 change variance.
Correct.
That's a substantial percentage of your projections, which was only at a break even. So if these are supposed to be basically 2 profitable months, but instead they were, as a whole, a loss.
Correct.
We're starting in a big hole for the rest of the year, since we were only looking at break even, but that break even included making basically $70,000 these 2 months, which are typically 2 of your better months.
No, you're correct. You're correct on that. And we could talk about the weather. We could talk about a lot of things that are, but you're
I'd like
correct.
to get past the weather, because I think you said it best. We couldn't ask for a better August and September.
Correct.
In our wildest dreams. So let's get past the weather. But I guess my point is, I hear you saying, and I agree with you, it's nice to be better than last year for 1 month or 2 months. But the bottom line is, for these 2 months, for this fiscal year, we are something like 135% below expectations, which was break even.
Correct.
One other specific question I think you can help me with. Jason, way up top for August, dues income for the month, 55.2?
Correct.
Against the budget of 38.7. Do we have that many more dues paying? Where does that come from?
But it's two things. First of all, we forecast for pool and tennis memberships over a 5-month break period, golf memberships over an 8-month. The biggest discrepancy is in the variance between what we budgeted for pool memberships versus what we budget for golf. So what I'm trying to say is we're making a little bit less money on golf memberships than we thought, and a little bit more money on pool and tennis memberships than we thought. So it kind of skews the 5 months a little bit higher than it probably really, what we thought it would be. And then the 3 months where we just have golf memberships are going to be a little bit lower than what we budgeted for.
So that's not, that's not actual dues for that year? You got, for that month, you have other months?
Correct. What we do is so if you pay a $2,000 membership, that gets allocated over, if it's a golf membership, it gets allocated over 8 months. If it's a pool membership, it gets allocated over 5.
So that's not true, actually.
On a year-to-date basis, it's probably going to be more of like a break even.
Okay.
From what we budgeted.
So the income of 210,
That's not cash.
it's not cash and it's
Correct.
not actual operating, okay.
Correct. It's not cash, it's revenue. And that's done.
I'm not saying.
Yeah, it's done, it's just an accounting principle,
wanna
and
understand
I've
that.
worked at courses that realize all their membership money on January 1st, and then others that do it this way.
And that's cool, but I think
Yeah.
when we look at this, we kind of want to get to, how we doing each month, are we making money, losing money?
Right.
So that's.
Can I just say on a personal note, I think you guys have done a valiant effort. I'm a member, as you know, my kids go in. Your online advertising, your emails, I think you're making a very valiant effort. There's been some good attempts at drawing in business and adding to the business. And recently, I've clearly noticed a solid attempt at getting out there, and I appreciate that effort. And so, I'm not basing this on Casper or on any one individual. I'm disappointed in the numbers, as I'm sure you and Casper are as well. But I did want to make note that there clearly has been a great push advertising, and I appreciate the effort towards it.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay,
Do you want me to, I was just going to talk quickly about September and October.
I don't care, I just thought there was more in my packet. I didn't.
We can't,
I think we've got the information.
We don't
Does
have
anyone
the
hear
final
more?
stuff, so
Okay,
it might be
okay.
best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
We can, I'm sorry, oh, Todd, yeah, but Todd's here, right, so we'll do this one. Okay. The Personnel Committee met just prior to this meeting, and I would like to call on Tony to report on the Personnel Committee action.
So we have 3 positions on the Personnel Committee that we're discussing for full-time hires. The first is by the library, and let me pass out a resume here for you. We have Todd here in case you have any questions.
You can have this one.
I'll take this one to Jerry. You can share that.
So the Library Commission is requesting hiring Catherine Ward for Program Outreach Coordinator, which is a title and duties change from the position where we had a retiree, correct? Was it retiree?
No,
she just left, went somewhere else, yeah. Which was Community Services Director. So Todd is here to give you a little background on that.
Yeah, basically the new role, we want it to be more technologically involved, redoing our website, changing servers, creating a new website platform, more Facebook, more Twitter, more adult programming outreach. Also cutting out some of the reference roles so they can concentrate more on PR for the library. Finding new streams to advertise. Ebook training, really a command of the ebook platforms and someone who really gets that technology, so we move forward with a second vendor that we now have at the library. So a little bit different role that we changed for the position.
Recommended to the board, yeah. It was unanimous recommendation by the Personnel Committee.
So you need from us a...
Yep, there's no question for Todd.
I'll make that motion that we approve Catherine Ward for the position of Program Outreach Committee as recommended by the Personnel Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, Todd.
The next two positions are in Public Works, and they're both mechanic positions. We had both of our Public Works mechanics. We can pass those down. There's just two.
Just two of them.
Both resigned their position. We had one mechanic that was with us for about 6-7 years, and he has taken another job in another company. And then we had just a recent hire
Tony saw them already.
who also has resigned for another position. So we went through our interview process, and our first recommendation, which was also approved unanimously by the Personnel Committee, is Stephen Sapo, who resides in Woodbridge at 192 Johnson Road. And he comes to Woodbridge with a lot of great experience as a master mechanic in several companies, including most recently working on the as master mechanic for the bridge construction in Stratford. And we were all very impressed by his qualifications and background, and as well as his location, as he is right down the road, which comes in particularly handy during storm events. So our recommendation is to hire Steve.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve the hiring of Steve Sapo as a mechanic?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
You want to collect these because it has a
Oh,
social
yep.
security number on it, correct?
Yep, you typically, this one does. The resume does not. You can keep that if you want. But typically we take these back. It's just so you can see the...
I'll give you this one.
Shred them.
Right. Our next applicant... Our next applicant also came very highly recommended by our interview panel, which is myself, Joe, and Joe Adalizzi and Warren Connors. We each bring a different area of expertise to our panel. And our next applicant is Robert Raver, who also resides in Woodbridge on Racebrook Road. And Robert also scored very well on our questions and had a lot of impressive background that we were very pleased with. So we'd like to recommend Robert.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve hiring Robert Raver as a mechanic?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I think it's great that there's two Woodbridge.
Yes,
Yeah,
it is.
they did, and they were both scored very highly on
Winter
that.
stuff. Tractor pulling and beekeeping.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Next item is,
Thanks.
we're going to hear from our tax collector.
Just before we do that, on Robert, who moved that?
I did.
And second?
I did.
Thank you. I was shutting the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, they come fast sometimes, huh?
Pat? And before you begin, I'd like to welcome Senator Crisco, who's here with us this evening. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, I'm Pat Crisco, tax collector. You gentlemen, I think. a couple of things I'd like to just kind of explain about our office that people seem to have questions about. One is refunds that will come from the finance office in a minute, and I think you have them in your packet. If you have any questions about how we do refunds, it's a really great time to ask them. Motor vehicles, people come in, they trade in cars, they get rid of cars, and it goes from the assessor's office to our office. And if they have already paid the taxes on it, we do refunds. And it comes to y'all for approval, and then the finance office does the checks, and we send them out. Personal property, we very seldom have personal property refunds. Those are for businesses, and it would have to be a really exceptional thing. Real estate's a little different. What happens in July, a lot of people have been refinancing their homes, and when they do that, most of the attorneys hold the tax payment for July. If they had a bank that they were escrowing with before this, sometimes the bank tells them they're going to send it to the homeowner, and they don't do that. They end up paying the July payment, and we now have 2 July payments they've taken from these people. And if they're escrowing, it means they're going to get paid in July anyway. So we try in those cases to help the people out by refunding one of the payments to them. Does that make sense to you?
How long does that cost the state? Because I just had one in Waterbury.
Oh, did you?
Took 8 weeks to get the money back.
No, it doesn't take that long here.
Oh,
The shame of it is that some people don't even know it's happened. And they don't know it's happened until after the January payment's made, and all of a sudden there are 3 payments on it. And when I run a process, I can tell they have 3 payments and they should only have 2. We do something that most towns don't do, and that's we contact the people and tell them that they have an overpayment. Sometimes they come forward and say we'd like the money back, and sometimes we never hear from them.
So you just gonna apply it to the next year? What do you mean?
We can, but in some of these cases, the people escrow, and it gets paid again. It just continues, yeah.
so what do we do with the money?
If we don't hear from them for 3 years,
Yeah.
the town can take,
It's cheap
the
to
money,
the town.
right. And we do not have to send that money to the state, it stays in the town coffers. Tony and I have a verbal kind of policy about it. If they should come back to us and say, gee, I think at some point I was overpaid, we would really look into it and probably refund the money to them. Yeah. Refunds. What our office does in collections, taxes are always due on July 1st. You have until August 1st to pay them. It's the same in every town in the state of Connecticut. Some people don't seem to remember that, but we try and encourage them to remember it. If taxes are not paid by August 1st, usually by the 2nd or 3rd of August, all of our money is in the bank. We don't have anything. We don't use lockbox here, so everything that comes into our office has been put into the bank. We send out reminder notices for all 3 bills. Sometimes, especially for real estate, a bank has not paid. We encourage the people to call the banks immediately and get it paid by then. This year, we've had a really pretty good year. We have some people who are hurting very badly, but not as much as we've had other years. I was hoping that the Office of Policy and Management would have their new figures out, because we had planned on moving up highly in the ranking of towns and how collections. Our collections, we were in the top 10. We were even up to number 3 at one time out of 169 towns. For the 2011, we dropped to 19th because we had Oak Lane out. It was a big hit on us for a while.
So the ranking is based on dollars rather than number of taxpayers?
It's based on percentage of collection. Yes. Yeah. And we do it very strictly here. We do it on actual dollars. Some towns manage to do it other ways, but the number 1 town is always Torrington, because they have someone there who buys their taxes and then he collects them separately. So they always have 100%.
But is the ranking for timely payments, or is the ranking for collection of
It's for
delinquent
collection
payments?
during that year.
Oh, just during the year?
During the year, during that year. And they also consider back taxes, which you go through back
Okay,
taxes.
all right, because I'm curious where we are in terms of timely payments. What percentage of our taxpayers
Is it
actually
timely?
pay by August 1st? I'm guessing it's high, but I don't know.
It is high, probably 80%,
It's pretty good.
maybe a little bit more than that. We've been as high as 99.7 collection at one time.
No, collection, I know you do really well. I was just curious about
About
the
how it
compliance
comes
level.
in.
Yeah.
Now, some, there are things that have to, or you remind people about. That's part of it. We send reminders in August, September, and October. In October, we send what are called demand notices. It's required by the state. You get a lot of people who finally call and tell you what their problems are. And I can tell by who's still out there that there are some people with really serious issues right now. We hope they don't become more serious. That's part of it. Motor vehicles are a little bit different because if you don't pay your motor vehicle, the program that the state DMV has now established really stops them when they go in to register a car. And you must pay every car in your name, not just the car that you want to renew. And that's presented a lot of interesting problems, but we've seemed to have solved. But DMV is doing a much better job of stopping these people, so our collection rate on that has become. The other issue is that cars are becoming more expensive, so the rates, the taxable dollar is high for a lot of people, and they don't seem to plan on that really well. I think that's it for tax part of our office. Any questions on that? Or in our office, we also do small cities. Tomorrow, we have 3 mortgages to be signed for 3 new projects that we're really excited about. We've had 1 or 2 out. It's been slow. The company that we use, Wagner Associates, the gentleman that we worked with for the other 2 projects, left the company. They have a new gentleman now who's doing it, and he's kind of in a learning process too. So it's been a little bit slower. Actually, he's very methodical. So when he talks to these people, it takes a little longer. It takes a little bit more time to get them on board and something. We're still running into the same problem we ran into the last time, where people really want to do it, but when it comes right down to it, they just don't want mortgages on their home. And so they kind of back off from it. A lot of the clients, I kind of call them, that we have, their houses are free and clear, but they live on a very limited income, either just Social Security and maybe a small pension, so they can't afford to take out a loan to do repairs. That's the biggest way we get people in and help them. So if they need a new furnace or they need a new roof, that's how we're able to accommodate them.
That program is all state dollars, is that correct?
Also,
Under the
yes,
small
it's
city.
actually, it's
That's
federal. It
Federal.
comes from
Federal.
HUD
Federal.
through DECD.
Right.
And they're the ones who, yeah, we hope it's not being held up anywhere.
Right.
That's a good point.
We also have money that's come back to us from people who, in 3 cases, are deceased. And that money will again go into a project that we decide on at some point. When we reach the ultimate goal of when the state makes us absolutely use it, yeah. We are now doing deposits for all of the other departments in town. That seems to be working pretty well. Yeah. The woman who works with me, Linda Cahill, is a notary. She does a lot of notaries, and the town doesn't charge for them, which is a really nice benefit for people. We have a lot of people who come in who need that. The last thing on my list was talking about change to an ordinance. We have a town ordinance that I did, I think back in '01, was a while ago, which said that to get a building permit here, you could not owe any taxes on the property. And it worked, it's been working pretty well. One of the issues that will try and write up for an ordinance is that we have had a few of them that this has happened to. They've paid their taxes and they've gotten a release to do a building permit. During the process of the building permit, we've come to the next payment of the taxes, and they haven't paid it. And we've had no way to stop them because we've already approved it. So when our attorney gets back and I can talk to him about how the wording should be, we might try and think about something like that.
Maybe there's a sunset on the building.
Yeah, that could be something too. The building permit actually covers anything that they give a sign off for downstairs. So if it's electrical or plumbing, these, I always forget what you call these new things that people are having done to their houses to bring up their power. Thank you. You're going to hear, well, as Terry Gilbertson says, our town is going to be lit up like a Christmas tree when we have an outing.
Is this an issue that you would like to refer to the ordinance committee to look into?
I would look,
I think
yes.
we should
Yeah.
ask the ordinance committee.
Okay. And I think that's about it. Any questions?
Any questions for Pat? Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, all your great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, we are now at item number 8, the report of the Director of Administration and Finance.
Okay, thank you.
The relief for the elderly?
I'm sorry?
The lady
She
in
spoke at public comment.
But then you said there was something later that we were going to see. Relief for the elderly.
Originally.
No, I said that we would refer that to the ordinance committee.
Oh, okay.
To take a look at.
All right. Sounds
There are
good.
now 2 items for ordinance.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I have the report here for the first quarter of the fiscal year. Result is a small budgetary surplus of about $54,000. There's not much that has changed since last month. We saw a slight variance of a positive surplus in grant revenue of about $15,000 due to revenue sharing funds. And we do have a slight surplus in our benefits line, which is a result of a $50,000 shortfall on workers' compensation, but a approximately $90,000 surplus in health care. So that's largely due to the rates were slightly lower than we had budgeted, and we had some positive changes in coverage. So those are our major items for the first 3 months of the fiscal year.
Any questions for Tony? Okay. Tax refunds.
Okay. You have in front of you total refunds of $10,170.75, including real estate refunds, which Pat just described, of $4,077, and motor vehicle refunds of $6,093.75.
Is there a motion to approve the tax refunds?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay, we'll go to funding requests.
Yep, there are 2 funding requests. 1314-06 is a line item transfer from Public Works for the purchase of 4 new tires that was not budgeted for 2 trucks. We also have a slight deficit due to some preparing for the winter season that we had not anticipated. There is a memo from Cindy which outlines the expenses that are involved, and this is from within the Public Works budget.
I'll make a motion that we approve line item transfer number 1314-06 in the amount of $8,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Second is a funding request of $3,000, which is the funding for the property assessment we discussed earlier for the 4 houses. There is $1,000 in the Conservation Commission budget currently for professional services, and so we felt that that would be appropriate to add 3,000 to that line to make the 4,000. That's a not to exceed figure, and it is based on the amount of time put into the project, so we're hoping to get that lower.
Is there a motion to approve funding request number 1314-07 in the amount of $3,000?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Update on boilers. I think we covered that with Dr. Stella.
Yep.
Okay. Animal control.
Okay. I have a report for September for animal control. They went on 104 calls, which was 39 in Derby, 24 in Bethany, and 41 in Woodbridge. There were 5 dogs from Woodbridge that were picked up and redeemed by their owners. There were 4 dogs that were adopted for Woodbridge, 2 dogs in Bethany, 1 dog and 2 cats in Derby. We also adopted out 2 roosters that were at the facility.
We saw them. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Yeah, good.
Still hanging, they haven't been picked up yet. But they're there.
There are currently 3 cats and 4 dogs at the shelter, and they have a log of folks that visit the shelter, and there was 136 visitors, not including children, at the facility. We've done some work to fix up the facility a little, and fix some kennels. We had a new roof installed on one of the sheds that was leaking, and fixed a dryer that was not working properly. Some maintenance items to get the facility up and running.
Any questions?
Any questions?
No, I'd like to comment that Susan and I got down there, and it's, I would recommend that y'all get time to get down there and take a look. It's they're doing a great job down there, and I didn't bring anybody home, which was a good thing. It was a struggle for me, but I did.
Was it the rooster?
Yeah.
Well, I'd
And,
like to make-
just for the general public, if anyone has another washer dryer stackable to donate, they could use it. So, you know, the 2 that just thought I'd pass that along.
Space is a little tight in there.
Yeah,
Very
right, but,
tight.
yeah, quite tight, but,
Right.
you know, they need, the drying, apparently the dryer that was repaired
Mhm.
still takes an hour to dry each
Right.
load, so just if anybody's out there and wants to donate something that's used, it would be helpful.
I'd like to make a comment too. I also had an opportunity to go down, and I had an opportunity to meet with Tony and Paul and walk the facility, and they're clearly in need of space. However, in our discussions, we also made notes that there's clearly going to be some expenses coming down the line, the roof, some other issues with there's no concrete platform as a runner for the dogs outside. There's some problems with some of the shelter on top of these outside encasements. It's a really poorly done. Matter of fact, while Tony and I were there, the dog jumped up and ripped up the tarp and pulled himself, almost got out, ripped it into shreds. It's just basically tarp thrown over the top. It's very poorly done. And the dog in front of our eyes ripped it up and almost used it as an escape hatch to climb up and get out. And it was a big dog. So him and I.
You have to go through the meadow, because they tend to come,
Yeah,
say
and
hi.
the reason I bring that up is, something I talked to Tony about, and I'd like to see us try to be proactive about is, we do have other towns using our service, and though it may be an asset that's on our property, our town property, it's certainly an asset that we all use, and these expenses that are coming up, I think we should make notice to those towns that there are expenses that are going to be needed to be dealt with. And
What do we have in the capital budget this year for it to do? I can't remember. We can look into that.
Yeah.
See if we have something there.
Yeah.
so maybe we can
Maybe
just take
going
notice of
forward,
that
yeah.
and just let them know that may be coming
Right.
in the near future or in the
I just
future.
want to say one thing, though. With all the challenges that clearly exist in that structure, the enclosures were clean, the animals all had water and food, they had shade, there was no poop all over the place, it clearly had been cleaned up on a regular basis. That's very impressive, to be able to stay on top of it that way. with all the challenges that they face. And I think that that's
And they give them
worthwhile.
outdoor time as well as inside time, and it's warm and
And
snuggly
there's
in the indoor
toys and
place.
there's blankets. I mean, it's a very humane,
They care very much.
very
for those
humane
animals.
place. And I did have to restrain that.
And maybe we should publicly.
Those little beagles are down there, if anybody
There's a lot
needs
of people.
beagles.
There was a little pig we were there. but-
There was, yes.
We saw the little pigs.
It's getting adopted out, don't panic.
There's
We're
already.
not gonna have
There's
another
two.
incident.
Maybe we should publicly also thank the woman who is right now assisting us, that is the animal control for Seymour. Really seems to care and is doing a wonderful job helping us out. So.
Tracy was down there too,
Yep.
Lynn's daughter.
Yeah.
She took us around.
And just
Really
to
good.
add to that, I think a thank you to Paul, who's really
Yeah.
stepped up and is
Paul
doing a
stepped up.
terrific job there too.
I was pleasantly happy, surprised.
Good, good. The next item, there are required state policies that we adopt every year, generally in the spring, in order to be eligible for state grants. These are non-negotiable, they're routine, but it was requested that we re-adopt them so that I could sign them, since they are currently with Ed Sheehy's signature. So there's no change to this, there would be no need to re-adopt it now, but I would ask for a motion that we re-adopt the Fair Housing Resolution, ADA Notice, Fair Housing Policy Statement, compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, municipal grievance procedure, and affirmative action policy.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
Yeah, I heard you, so these are carry forwards, which is fine. So council has looked at these and they comply with the current state of all these various laws?
Right.
I mean, I don't want to just carry them forward and then there's changes in the law, so I just want to be sure town council has determined that these statements here comply with these various federal statutes.
We have not sent them to him at this time because they are generally in effect for a year until the spring. So we would not be doing it except for the change in first selectman.
Okay.
If you'd like to
No,
say.
no, that's
did them
what-
a few
so
months
these
ago.
are
So we
for
would
this
do
current
the,
year.
yeah, they're for the current year.
Right.
No problem, then.
Right.
Every April. More
Yeah,
applicable
when it comes up again.
Right.
Exactly. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, the next item is the town clerk's report, and I would entertain a motion to acknowledge receipt of the town clerk's report.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first, Selectmen's report. There are a few things I would like to mention. The Country Club of Woodbridge Ad Hoc Committee held its first meeting on October 2nd. Nearly 150 people attended, and we were very, very pleased with the participation of the public. Many people at Town Hall who've been to many of these meetings were very impressed that there were so many new faces. So thank you to everyone who came out and shared their vision and their views and their ideas. The next meeting will be on October 15th at 7 o'clock in the Center Gym. Everyone is welcome to attend. It's certainly been a very vibrant community conversation. I've gotten only very positive feedback about it, including suggestions about how we can do this better. We'll try to incorporate those suggestions, although it would be a little hard to do some of them by the next meeting. But one thing that we will do is definitely not have two groups in the main gym, where it was apparently hard to hear in some of the groups.
What?
So we have another location. I do want to also thank the members of the ad hoc committee, everyone who assisted by being a recorder in one of the groups, and all of the town hall staff who helped so much in making this a success. So again, thank you to everyone who attended also, and hope to see a good turnout again. We have approximately 70 people signed up already for the next session, so that was good. I also wanted to mention, I don't think we actually talked about it here at the Board of Selectmen, that we have extremely strong fiscal stewardship under Tony Genovese, and it benefits us in many ways, but recently Moody's Investor Service reaffirmed our AAA bond rating, which is the highest we can have. It means that we get lower bond rates than we would otherwise get, so I want to thank Tony again for his great work. Thank you. The fun run on October 5th, Dr. Stella mentioned that it was just a terrific event, both the kids event and the adult event. And both for the children and the adults, we broke all records. Not for time, I can't say about time, but for the number of participants. We had more than we ever had before. The children, there were 77 boys and girls, and there were 229 adults. It was it was really a fun day. I'd like to extend kudos to John Adamovich and the Recreation Department. Again, they did a fabulous job. Tony, thank you, handing out those T-shirts. It was great to see you there. And also thank you so much to the volunteer firefighters who were there and provided lunch to the runners. I think all the calories they expended on the run, they ate in that lunch from the firefighters, but they were there. And finally, we have a new service for town residents. We can now accept paint recycling at the transfer station, and I think that is a great benefit to people. It will be recycled in an environmentally sound way. I think people really care about that. So bring your old paint cans, 5-gallon containers or less. It's a great opportunity, and I would encourage everyone to take advantage.
Is there a permit required? Do you have to go to the facilities office first?
It's the same permit that you have for the transfer station. No new permit is required for this.
Oh, but sometimes you have to go for an air conditioner or...
This is with your...
As I said,
That's what I'm asking.
and is that on the website? That should be on the website, because I think people would really take advantage of that.
It will really help with the actual recycling, because so
Absolutely.
many people hide it in their trash because there's no way to get rid of it. It's
Right.
very
True.
difficult to get
Right.
rid of. So it's a great thing to be taking it
Well,
out
it
of the
sits in our
garbage and go
basements
where
for
it
12
belongs.
years.
Right,
and it presents
right.
its own
Waiting
problems.
fire,
Right, no,
yeah.
that's exactly right.
So that's
It's a great program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent, glad to hear that.
And now our administrative officer's report. Joe?
Yes, ma'am. First part under Veterans Day, Monday, November 11th. I'd like you in place not later than 10:50. The ceremony is 11 at 11 at 11. November 11th, 11 o'clock. The Boy Scouts will ring the bell. As you're perhaps aware, Frank Calistro passed away, so his brother, whom I saw at Willows a few days ago, said, "You got to get a new bugler." And I said, "Yeah, I understand that." So we're getting a tape. Captain Barry Josephs, who is a Vietnam veteran attached to the 82nd. He was a tennis, but he was attached to 82nd Airborne. He pinch hit for me in May when Gail and I were out in St. Louis for a high school graduation for one of our grandkids. So please support that. I'm not sure right now whether Miss Gail and I will be there because it's our 57th wedding anniversary, and I think that lady wants to be someplace else besides Woodbridge. So keep it in mind, Veterans Day, Monday the 11th of November, at the green in front of the post.
I'm sorry, 11 a.m. also?
Yes, ma'am. 11.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, the other thing is hopefully going to be not too long, but a couple things. A little bit of history, a lot of comedy, I hope, and a few other things. First of all, on a serious note, it has been my privilege and pleasure and honor to serve as your town administrative officer for 12 plus years. I'll come back on that later, but I really mean it. This job has been a lot of fun. I've had the pleasure of working with both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, and it's been fun. After several meetings and discussions with First Selectman Celato and Finance Director Tony Genovese, we all agreed that a retirement date of 15 January 2014 would permit an orderly transition. Now, this is important because my predecessor, Lou Zuhl, resigned in August of 2000, giving 1 week's notice. That will not be the case today. My conditions for employment when I was hired was as follows. I had to resign from the Republican Town Committee, of which I'd been a member for 25 years, and I had to resign from the executive board of the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association for possible conflict of interest, and that was a darn good move. Both of those were good moves. I will remain as a volunteer as the assistant town treasurer. I've been the town treasurer for 12 years anyway. I'm bonded. Mr. Genovese trusts me with the funds, so we're all set there. I'm going to tell you a funny story about business cards, and we'll get back to some other stuff. Business cards were ordered when I thought by Jerry Shaw. Finally, after 4 weeks, I learned that Jerry was not going to waste money without knowing that I would stay or survive this stuff. She did finally spend the $40.
I was going to say, how do you feel about it?
Roger made me promise to stay 1 year since he was not planning to run, although he didn't tell me why. Therefore, I would be the bridge to the new administration, and that was Susan running against Amy, and Roger instructed me to counsel any of the candidates to please come in and whatever we could do to assist them or give them knowledge, we did. But that goes back a few weeks, as we
That's
well know.
ancient history.
Yeah. I have served under the following selectmen. Roger Harrison from January 15th, 2001 until June the 30th, 2001. Amy Rowella from July 1st, 01 to 4/14/06. Ed Sheehy, 4/20/06 to 4/22/13. Beth Heller, our deputy first selectman now, 4/25/13 to 6/30/13. And our first selectman, Ellen, 7/1 to as long as you want. And we have had some fun. Roger Harrison hired me on January 15th of 01. Joe Calistro was the senior Republican selectman, and in this case, this was a deal there. Number one, those two got along very well together, and I had been liaison from the firehouse over here for a number of years, so I knew Mr. Harrison that way. I knew Mr. Calistro because I served under him when he was town chairman a couple of times, and so that's how all that came to pass. Ed Sheehy joined the meeting that day, but he was on the back of the railroad on that one. So that's how that deal all came about. Let's see here. Another thing, and we'll get a couple more things here. We are in the service business. You know, we start, and I'm very proud of our town staff for a lot of things. But one of the things, people come in here and they say to me, we call on a lot of town halls. Your town hall is the friendliest town hall, most cooperative, very warm, and I love it. It starts with Lynn Anglace out in the front. How may I help you? You walk into my office, I don't look for an I, an R, or a D on your forehead. I don't give a darn about that. It is, good morning, sir, good morning, ma'am, how may I help you? And that attitude, I think, does an awful lot to make town hall personnel be not the victims, the recipients of a lot of praise. The administrative officer, believe it or not, is very non-political, and you'll all be amused because a lot of people come into my office say, are you a Republican? And I'll say, ask the registrar. Are you a Democrat? Ask the registrar. Are you if they really want to know, they can go ask the registrar, because what difference does it make? I mean, you know, President Reagan and Tip O'Neill got a lot of things done. You get much more with honey than you do with vinegar, so we have to try that. Yes, this is a government, but it's also a $44 million business. Approximately 70% goes to Beecher for the K through 6. Some goes to Amity and Bethany for the grades 7 and 8, and some goes to Amity High School for 9 through 12. But again, 44 million is your total, and 70% goes for education. So nobody can really say that this town does not support education. Mr. Sheehy passed away. The entire town hall staff did a magnificent job in the transition for Beth and for Ellen. Everyone cooperated, and the excellent teamwork was obvious. And from this board, we say to the folks that work here, thank you folks, because they did a wonderful job for us. Some recent highlights. On August the 16th of 12, natural gas flowed to the Amity High School. And we've had more. All your buildings here are on gas, with the exception of the old firehouse. We will be hooking up gas to the new construction that's down there now for Public Works. And at some point, the new firehouse across the street. There is a pipeline from Center Road to the firehouse, and we have some issues with the very expensive and fancy burners that they've got. So that's to be done. On 9/23, year 12, we had the 150th anniversary of the Civil War, hosted on the town green. We had a very large parade and 400 plus people, and that's one of the largest gatherings we've had in this town. On 12, religious organizations participated, and that was kind of a moving thing. And going backward on the calendar, at 10/29, Superstorm Sandy dropped 40 inches of snow, which if I was from Vermont, I'd love, but I didn't love it down here. I want to, for the record, say that we in the EOC, which is your Emergency Operations Center, and that is staffed by the Chief of Police, the First Selectman, Public Works, Mary Ellen LaRocca, Fire Chief, and a few others. We made the determination on that third day. Everybody's saying that the roads were open and big enough. None of us wanted to take the responsibility of getting a kid hit or worse yet, killed. So that was the decision. A lot of our roads were not safe for people to drive on or walk on. The other towns that said they were, but they didn't have any accidents, but their roads were not that good. And recently, Derek Jeter, whose number is number 2, and Andy Pettit, whose number is 46, went to the mound to relieve Mariano Rivera. Now, the Boston Red Sox fans may not care, but the rest of you. And Rivera's number is 42, which has also been permanently retired. And I read his lips, and then I heard him say it. Derek said, "It is time to go now." He was right. It is time to go now. Thank you all, and God bless our town.
Well, Joe, on behalf of the board, I'm sure people will speak for themselves in the town. You have certainly provided terrific service, and I've so enjoyed these months working with you, and I know the transition you'll help us. I would like to say that this was totally Joe's decision, but I think really Miss Gale was behind it. I think she's been saying for a while, Joe, it's time, we're going to have fun, it's time to stay home and do some other things.
Madam
So we
Selectman,
appreciate
that is
that.
so true.
I
have a birthday coming up in a week, and that'll be number 79, and it's about time to get out and smell the roses. So.
Totally.
But I thank you.
And we certainly will do an appropriate recognition for you, Joe. Does anyone want to speak tonight?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. For the past, how many years have I been here now? 11, 12. Working with Joe, and he's been a great mentor and a great friend, and has taught me a lot of things you can't read in a book, that's for sure, about how to run things. So I do appreciate that.
Thank you, John.
Well, I'm saving my remarks for a cocktail party.
I'm waiting. I have to collect myself to make sure I get it all in. But you know, from the beginning, when I first became, when I first went on the fire commission, I called you that day and said, "Help," and you have since that moment been right by my side. But I got to get it together. I haven't. I'm
That's been my pleasure.
speechless, but thank you.
Do it on.
Yeah, and then do it at the cocktail hour.
I'll make a down payment. To your comment, Joe, about the service provided by the town hall staff to residents, I think the common denominator in all that is there's a personal touch, and I think that flows from the top. I think it flows from you and from Tony, and from Jerry, of course. Who you guys, you are the nucleus, and you are the nucleus, right? Protons and neutrons. But anyway, it flows from you, and then it's reflected in the rest of the staff as you described. So. So for your service, I'm grateful, and there will be more between now and January 15th.
Save us some time. Save us some time for that night.
We're here for a while. I said, that guy really crucified Jerry because he took off for 1 week. So poor Jerry, who had enough to work to start with, also had to do the admin job. Yeah. And that's why she was so good at it, and that's why she trained me so well.
That's why she held off on the business cards.
Maybe she wanted to keep going.
No, I didn't mind it. We should provide you with extra work between now and December. We'll be busy now. I mean, that way to keep you around.
Yeah, right. Thank you, but
thank you for your nice speech, Joe.
You're welcome.
Very well done.
I haven't been here long enough to say too much firsthand, but thanks for your service to the town, Joe. And all accounts, you've done a great job. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Big news. We're going to finish up the meeting now, but yeah, that was. Thank you, Joe.
Yes, ma'am.
Liaison reports. Lawrence, do you want to start?
No meetings since the last time
Okay.
this board met.
Board of Police Commission is meeting next week, as is, I believe, Country Club of Woodbridge, so I have no report.
I went to one meeting. It was Town Planning and Zoning this past Monday night, and just to give you an update, they voted to approve the special permit for use of a restaurant liquor establishment at Wheeler's. That's been taken care of. They also, as I explained to Jason, they did vote to approve the amendments to the Town Plan of Conservation and Development related to farmland preservation. And the commission voted to defer until their next meeting on November 4th, a vote on the amendments regarding, this is to zoning regulations, regarding abutting towns and also related to firearm sales. And that's it for them, and Fire Commission meets on the 21st of October. So I'll get back to you next month with that stuff.
Well, I had 3 committees meet, so I'll give you the rundown. Economic Development Commission met on September 12th. They went over an update involving the steep ramp with the sidewalk improvements as a possibility to look at that again for reasons of things such as a bike rack to put bicycles on, that type of thing. So that was discussed, but no action was really taken. The concept plan for the village of Woodbridge, Professor Plattis put together. They looking to make copies of that, either in a binder or that type of thing, and get them out to some people. It won't be one made for every resident, but maybe put them in some strategic areas and have some people have a copy of that. Unfortunately, the website, which was supposed to have its official launch on October 17th at the JCC, is not going to happen at this time. It was postponed to iron out some details. Some things weren't quite ready for prime time. So there will be a new date set for that when they feel it's ready to go.
Are they doing their own website or part of the town?
It's part of the town's.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's being handled
Gotcha.
separately,
Okay.
same deal. And so it's just
Makes
not
sense.
quite
Right.
ready to go. And then the last thing I'll tell you about the economic development was a young lady came in. Her name is Kate Brown. She has a fitness facility over on 245 Amity Road, Jim Urbano's property. She used to be over, I think, by the bowling alley. But in any case, she's over there now. She's running a Scarecrow Festival, which is this Saturday at that property. One of the people coming is, we're adding a new bakery to town, and that new bakery is planning on coming and handing out some goodies to promote her moving in. She's moving into that Subway strip plaza. I think the name of it's Burnt. She has a cute subtitle, something like, "We do baked goods well done," something like that. Anyways.
Did she bring samples?
No, she didn't, but she's planning on being there. I think Amity Gardens are gonna be there. There's gonna be a farm stand type thing. So if you get a chance on the 12th, she's calling it a Scarecrow Festival, but the reason she came to Economic Development was she's hoping the town will get involved in possibly something a little bit bigger next year. And if you've ever been to the town of Essex, they do it's about 3 weeks long, where they have different businesses put out a different scarecrow. Everybody dresses it differently. So maybe there's a scarecrow, a fireman in front of the firehouse. So their town buildings do it, and their businesses as well participate. It's pretty neat. You drive around. So she's hoping she can get some businesses involved next year to put up some scarecrows, maybe dress them up according to their business, and just give you something to, and then maybe at the end they'll have this one-day festival where maybe you judge the scarecrows and you have a little gathering. Not the Seymour Pumpkin Festival size, but in any case. So that was economic development. It was well received. Conservation, the good news is Jason gave you most of the highlights. What I wrote down, though, they did get quorum. It was a tough night, but they had 4 members. And as you know, Paul DeCoster handed over the grant. They talked about wanting to incorporate the responsibilities like we discussed with the agriculture, if that's needed. They're looking to have a fall trail walk. They haven't come up with a date and time yet. And they were still looking, and this is something that maybe somebody here can help them with, for a permanent meeting location. Currently, they're meeting here, but the night they meet is the finance meet. Right, and so what they were wondering, is it possible they have their meetings at 7:30? Would that give enough time for the finance to get out? The only question I would have is, what if it runs late? How do you handle that? They don't have a permanent home. They did start looking at, the library unfortunately has movie night that night, and they were wondering maybe the fire department or maybe room 16 over here. So they still need a home if they can't meet here. So that's it for conservation. Recreation met on September 30th. Well wishes were offered to Stanley Gdansky. In case some of you don't know, he suffered a fall and had some complications with that. So we'd like to offer our well wishes as well. They would like to be advised of the pool status in the BRS building plan. I recommended that they come to those open hearings whenever Jeff and they decide to have those hearings and discuss that. They're not sure where the pool was left. Originally it was in the plan, then it was changed. So I recommended they talk to see what the current status is of the pool. The summer concerts were discussed. It was a big success. There was ideas discussed to enhance those evenings. We've talked about things such as having a Woodbridge Works Night, where maybe different Amity Bowling comes, Clay Date comes, whoever, Right Approach comes, and has been, then another night where it'd be something like Taste of Woodbridge, where the different restaurants. They haven't, but we've discussed it. I've discussed it with them. They're going to try. They need time to do that, but they're really into trying to make that happen. Maybe even a health fair night on one of the concert nights.
I'm thinking of Woodbridge.
But in any case, so that was, and Sandy Simowitz came to Recreation to thank them. They had a tremendous summer enrichment program year, both in number and in success. The kit was well received. They had a ton of kids. And they also talked about a plan they'd like to start. They've started to look at things they do, fields they have, maybe needs they see in the future, and they'd like to discuss that with TP&Z for the 10-year plan and put something together so that maybe there could be a little more purpose over design of the future of some of the hopes and dreams they have, at least for different fields and different improvements that they may need.
That might be part of the POCD planning, probably that'd be good.
Yeah, they are also going to be guests of the conservation on the 17th to give the conservation is trying to have a few different groups come together to try to decide who's talking about what and maybe where they can help each other out. So Coupop was discussed. Leslie Martino came in from the parks, and they've had different people in from different groups that kind of do similar in nature, land use and conservation. So they're trying to put that together so they're not overlapping each other all the time, and maybe there's ways they can help each other out with information, that type of thing. Sheila McCreven came in and talked to them about some of the studies that they're both kind of looking at certain properties, so maybe they can help each other out. And the last thing I'd tell you is the concern I found of the night was the conditions of the fields, and I think you and I discussed it a little bit. They'd like to have Adam Parsons come back before the board and discuss where we are. The trial period, they feel, is sufficient enough to see some positives and some negatives of not using the pesticides, and there have, so you know, been some injuries now that they're directly relating to the field conditions. Unfortunately, not only do the weeds come in and have overtaken some of the fields a little, but apparently the insects come with it, and when the insects come, so do things such as skunks. The skunks have dug holes getting to the grubs that are like little craters, very bad in some of the fields, and there was an ankle injury. Unfortunately or fortunately, they were players from other towns, but there had been some injuries. They have great concern about the field conditions and which direction they're heading, and they want us to reassess that. Originally they had thought, Recreation thought it was going to be a trial period for 2 fields, and if you remember, it was ended up that we did a trial period for all the fields, and they have concerns over where those fields, the shape they're in, and the possible injuries that are there. So I brought that to your attention so that maybe we can have Adam come in and discuss where we are with that.
Sure.
That's it.
Thank you, Tony.
You sure? That's it. That's my 3. I'll be at another one next
Joe,
week.
can you top this?
I hope not. No. Library Commission, they hired a part-time employee for the community outreach part-time position, and they voted to send to us the full-time position, Catherine Ward, we dealt with her today. Human Services, I think most importantly, they voted on their capital outlay budget for future years. I think it was 15 and 16. They're going way out. They're going to need 2 new, or 1 new bus. So that'll be coming at some point in time to us. They approved that. I think it was $127,000 or something for a new bus, and $15,000 for a commercial refrigerator. I think that went out to 2018. So they work well in advance. Apparently, they plan well. So that's pretty much it. Inland wetlands. There was a site visit for various properties on Saturday, and no resolution there. So that's pretty much it for me.
Thank you
Sorry,
very much.
Tony, I couldn't tell
Thank you, Jeff. Good effort.
Well, thank you all very much for the reports and the meeting, and entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.